Hey, Shalom Akim. Back again with another video. First and foremost, call hello Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim Rakakwadash, and of course, double honors go out to the apostles of Great Millstone, alright, who taught us all this truth through the Spirit. And in this video, this is Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, the idiot that he is, and this is from Raw Story. It says, Debunking Tom Cotton, historian exposes the top 10 myths about Thanksgiving. And this not only covers Thanksgiving, but a lot of the stories that we were taught growing up, turn out to be lies. A lot of the traditions that were based, therefore, on these stories, also nothing but lies, So, here's number one. It says the Pilgrims held the first Thanksgiving. It says to see what the first Thanksgiving was like, you have to go to Texas. Texans claim the first Thanksgiving in America actually took place in Little San Elizario, a community near El Paso, in 1598, 23 years before the Pilgrims Festival. For several years, they have staged a reenactment of the event that culminated in the Thanksgiving celebration. The arrival of Spanish explorer Juan de Onate on the banks of the Rio Grande, is said to have held a big Thanksgiving festival after leading hundreds of settlers on a grueling 350-mile-long trek across the Mexican desert. Yeah, right. Then again, you may want to go to Virginia. At the Berkeley Plantation on the James River, they claim the first Thanksgiving in America was held there on December 4th, 1619, 2 years before the Pilgrims Festival, and every year since 58. They have reenacted the event. In their view, it's not the Mayflower we should remember, it's the Margaret, the little ship which brought 38 English settlers to the plantation in 1619. The story is that the settlers had been ordered by the London company that sponsored them to commemorate the ship's arrival with an annual day of Thanksgiving. Hardly anybody outside Virginia has ever heard of this Thanksgiving, but in 1963, President Kennedy officially recognized the plantation's claim. Myth 2. Thanksgiving was a bit about family. If by Thanksgiving you have in mind the Pilgrim Festival, forget about it being a family holiday. Put away your Norman Rockwell paintings, turn off Bing Crosby. Thanksgiving was a multicultural community event. If it had been about family, the Pilgrims never would have invited the Indians to join them. Myth 3. Thanksgiving was about religion. No, it wasn't. Paraphrasing the answer provided above, if Thanksgiving had been about religion, the Pilgrims never would have invited the Indians to join them. Besides, the Pilgrims would never have tolerated festivities at a true religious event. Indeed, what we think of as Thanksgiving was really a harvest festival. Actual Thanksgivings were religious affairs. Everybody spent the day praying. Incidentally, these Pilgrim Thanksgivings occurred at different times of the year, not just in November. Myth number 4. The Pilgrims ate turkey. What did the Pilgrims eat at their Thanksgiving festival? They didn't have corn on the cob, apples, pears, potatoes, or even cranberries. No one knows if they had turkey, although they were used to eating turkey. The only food we know they had for sure was deer. And they didn't eat with a fork. They didn't have forks back then. So how did we get the idea that you have turkey and cranberry and such on Thanksgiving? It was because the Victorians prepared Thanksgiving that way. And they're the ones who made Thanksgiving a national holiday, beginning in 1863, when Abe Lincoln issued his presidential Thanksgiving proclamations. 2 of them, one to celebrate Thanksgiving in August, a second one in November. Before Lincoln, Americans outside New England did not usually celebrate the holiday. The Pilgrims, incidentally, didn't become part of the holiday until late in the 19th century. Until then, Thanksgiving was simply a day of thanks, not a day to remember the Pilgrims. See? And also, you got to understand that meal that he just described, that goes into describing the slaughter of the Native Americans. Of course, the cranberry stands for the blood, and therefore you know what the turkey stands for. All right. So let's see. What else? What other lies we have here? Myth number 5. The Pilgrims landed on Plymouth Rock. Uh-oh. According to historian George Willison, who devoted his life to the subject, the story about the rock is all malarkey. BS. A public relations stunt pulled off by townsfolk to attract attention. What Willison found out is that the Plymouth Rock legend rests entirely on the dubious testimony of Thomas Fonce, a 95-year-old man who told the story more than a century after the Mayflower landed. Unfortunately, not too many people ever heard how we came by the story of Plymouth Rock. Willison's book came out at the end of World War II, and Americans had more on their minds than pilgrims then. So we've all just gone merrily along repeating the same old story as if it's true when it's not. And anyway, the Pilgrims didn't land in Plymouth first. They first made landfall at Provincetown. Of course, the people of Plymouth stick by hoary tradition. There we go. Tour guides insist that Plymouth Rock is the rock. And yet they let that lie go on when they could have corrected it, as it said here, World War II. All right. Myth number 6. Pilgrims lived in log cabins. No pilgrim ever lived in a log cabin. The log cabin did not appear in America until late in the 17th century, when it was introduced by Germans and Swedes. The very term log cabin cannot be found in print until the 1770s. Log cabins were virtually unknown in England at the time the Pilgrims arrived. So what kind of dwellings did the Pilgrims inhabit? As you can see if you visit Plymouth Plantation in Massachusetts, the Pilgrims lived in wood clapboard houses made from sawed lumber. Myth number 7. Pilgrims dressed in black. Not only did they not dress in black, they did not wear those funny buckles, weird shoes, or black steeple hats. So how did we get the idea of the buckles? Plymouth Plantation historian James W. Baker explains that in the 19th century, when the popular image of the Pilgrims was formed, buckles served as a kind of emblem of quaintness. That's the reason illustrators gave Santa buckles. Even the blunderbuss with which pilgrims are identified was a symbol of quaintness. The blunderbuss was mainly used to control crowds. It wasn't a hunting rifle, but it looks out of date and fits the pilgrim stereotype. Let's go into that word, quaintness. Let's see. All right. Quaintness, the quality of being quaint and old-fashioned. She liked the old cottage. All right, let's go into the Free Dictionary. Charmingly odd, especially in an old-fashioned way. All right. Archaic, unfamiliar or unusual in character. Strange. All right. Just to make sure that everybody knows what we're talking about here. All right. Let's see. All righty. Oops. So, as we can see, all these lies, nothing but lies, lies and more lies. And people actually believe that, all right? And that's how they've maintained a kind of, how should I say, control, yeah, over the people. All right, lies. And people are so fearful, and they just, especially our people, they just go along with the program. All right. Not thinking for once to question things. That's the only way you're going to get the truth. All right. So we scroll on down here. Let's see. I think I left off at 7. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. So number 8. Number 8 says Pilgrims, Puritans. The same thing. Though even presidents get this wrong. Ronald Reagan once referred to Puritan John Winthrop as a pilgrim. Pilgrims and Puritans were two different groups. The Pilgrims came over on the Mayflower and lived in Plymouth. The Puritans, arriving a decade later, settled in Boston. The Pilgrims welcomed heterogenesis. Some so-called strangers came to America in search of riches. Other so-called saints came for religious reasons. The Puritans, in contrast, came over to America strictly in search of religious freedom, or to be technically correct, they came over in order to be able to practice their religion freely, so they say. They did not welcome dissent. That we confused Pilgrims and Puritans would have horrified both. What you had was a bunch of criminals and other, rejects that England did not want, all right? It says that we confused Pilgrims and Puritans could have horrified both. Puritans considered the Pilgrims incurable utopians. While both shared the belief that the Church of England had become corrupt, only the Pilgrims believed it was beyond redemption. They therefore chose the path of separatism. Puritans held out the hope that church will reform. That was a common lie told that, well, they came over here because they were persecuted for religion. No, they're a bunch of scoundrels. Their whole nation is nothing but scoundrels. It says Puritans hated sex. That's myth number 9. It says actually they welcomed sex as a God-given responsibility. When one member of the First Church of Boston refused to have conjugal relations with his wife 2 years running, he was expelled. Cotton Mather, the celebrated Puritan minister, condemned a married couple who had abstained from sex in order to achieve a higher spirituality. They were the victims, he wrote, of a blind zeal. Myth number 10. Puritans hated fun. H.L. Mencken defined Puritanism as the haunting fear that someone, somewhere may be happy. Actually, the Puritans welcomed laughter and dressed in bright colors, or, to be precise, the middle and upper classes dressed in bright colors. Members of the lower classes were not permitted to indulge themselves. They dressed in dark clothes. As Carl Degler long ago observed, the Sabbatarian, anti-liquor, and anti-sex attitudes usually attributed to the Puritans are a 19th century addition to the much more modern and wholesome view of life's evils held by the early settlers of New England. So see, you have it there. All this crap that we learned in school was just that, crap. Let's go to 2 Thessalonians 2. And let's see. Hmm. 15. Therefore, brethren, stand fast and hold the traditions which ye have been taught, whether by word or our epistle. All right. And let's go to Jeremiah 10:3. It says, for the customs of the people are vain. Of course, for one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workman with an axe. Another vain tradition and or custom, and that's, of course, Thanksgiving, as we call it, is a couple of days from now, and then the next holiday is what this is making reference to, another vain custom in these unholy days that Esau has set up, and that's that Christmas, all right, another one, a major one, all right, but not so much this year, I reckon, because of this so-called pandemic, so we shall see. But then again, this is why we go here. And for our people, this is what we should be doing. This is Job chapter 8, verse 8. And it says, "For inquire, I pray thee, of the former age, and prepare thyself to the search of their fathers." All right? That's what we should be doing. These are the things that we should be inquiring of. All right? This is Romans 15 and 4. It says, "For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we, through patience and comfort of the scriptures, might have hope." Remember, these scriptures, this is our comforter, not everybody else. This is our comforter. All right? And it just so happens this is what's giving us the proper foundation. All right? Because what's coming down the pipe, trust you and believe we're going to need it. All right? That's getting it in our spirit. All right? While we can. All right, Isaiah 33 and 6. Let's get that real quick and I'm going to close. This is Isaiah chapter 33, verse 6. It says, "And wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times, and strength of salvation. The fear of the Most High Yahweh is his treasure." That's another thing. Fear of the Most High. All right. That in itself is wisdom. So with that, I hope whoever views this is edified. Call halal Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushua, Bahashim Rikakwadash, and of course, double honors go out to the apostles of Great Millstone. All right, who rule well. So with that, Shalom.